Today is stump grinding day. Right? I've actually done probably 50 stumps. Some big, some small. These are the big ones, or at least this is where the big ones used to be. And I figured I would record the last one, because the last one's pretty big. And it does get a little monotonous to video too many. But there is actually an interesting dilemma caused by cutting down trees, right? You cut them down, you end up with stumps. So what do you do with the stumps? You can cut them off flush to the ground as close as you can and try and ignore them. But the closest you can get to the ground is about an inch, and you ruin your saw. So you touch some dirt, you touch a rock, your chain is dull, you're constantly sharpening your chain. Makes the day of cutting the trees very annoying. Another way of doing it, the way I prefer to do it, is push the tree down with the excavator, pull the stump out when it goes down, cut it off, make a pile, dig a hole, bury them. Trouble is with that is you have to have the excavator out and you've got to dig a hole. And when you look at the total amount of time pushing them down, pulling them out, stacking them, digging a hole, putting them in, burying them, it takes quite a bit of time. Plus, in some areas, it's not legal to bury stumps. So that kind of leaves you with cutting the tree down, coming back later, digging the stump out, only then to try and burn it, which takes forever, and or bury it. So no matter what you do, it takes a while. The third choice, I guess it's fourth choice, is to do what we did a few years back, which is to buy a stump grinder. So if you already own a bobcat and need to own a bobcat, I should say skid steer, then you can go buy or rent stump grinder. We almost always buy our stuff used off one of the rental companies. They tend to maintain them pretty well, and although the odd thing is broken on them, they're at least maintained properly because they're in a rental fleet. And when they either don't get rented often enough, or they just get a little worn out, they're sold. So this one cost about $6,000. Absolute beast, and you'll see that in just a minute. But the reason I mention money is the cost of grinding stumps is huge. You ask somebody else to do it for you and they want $350 to $500 for a big stump. You know, $150 to $200 for a small stump. And considering that I have done probably 30 small stumps, 10 medium stumps, and a couple of big stumps already today, you know, that's the equivalent of $3,000 worth of stump grinding. It's now midday. I started at 9 o'clock. That's $1,000 an hour. So since this isn't the first and last day I grind stumps, and I probably have ground stumps at least 3 days a year, and I always grind for at least 2 or 3 hours at a time, then you know we're talking about $3,000 times 3 or 4 times a year. That's $10,000 at least a year in the equivalent cost of asking somebody else to do it. I've owned this stump grinder now for 5 years. The payback on buying a stump grinder is the only way to go. It's like anything. That's why I own multiple excavators and stump grinders and all kinds of stuff. It's because I will not pay thousands of dollars for other people to do stuff I can do myself. So I'm going to set the camera up down here and come in and do 2 big stumps that are in the way. I might even do 3, but I'm going to do that one that's there and this one that's here, and try and get a really good view of what it takes and how long it takes and the god-awful noise that it makes. So I'm going to go to time-lapse and videotape these. There's one big stump and one small, medium-sized stump. Nice and neat and tidy, perfectly good for the woods. All done in 20 minutes. I would have been charged probably $400 for those 2. Better than $1,000 an hour. And does an awesome job. So we're all done. I'm gonna call it quits for the day. I've done a lot of stumps. It's 1 o'clock. I have to go down the planning board and submit some drawings. So I'm gonna go put the old girl away.